Hi, welcome back to another episode of Unique Moments where I talk about things from my unique perspective. So, today, I'm going to be talking about attachment styles and mainly just defining them and how they look. And I'm sure you've seen them once or twice, or maybe more than a few times. But before we get into it, I did pull a card. I pulled this from the Shamanic Healing deck, and we got Ancient Wisdom, number 34. I was going to read the book, but I have no clue where it is. But to me, the card is saying there's a bunch of trees pictured on it. And nature holds ancient wisdom, sacred wisdom. Nature does, the trees do, the roots do. They've been here for time and time and time again, season after season after season. And there's some information stored there for sure. And I think it's also saying ancient wisdom is beyond our comprehension, beyond our understanding. Have you ever stumbled upon something that you knew, but you didn't know how you knew, or you didn't know why you knew? And there was really no need to question it. It was just like, oh, this is like an instant download. Like, this is new information that I now have. I don't need to fact check it. I just know. That to me is what ancient wisdom is like. It's not something that we had to study or that we went to school for. This has been here. This has been here before. It's not its first time. So I think trees are a big symbol of that. But then also nature itself, nature in general, because it just regenerates itself, which is really, really cool. So we got ancient wisdom. It's kind of fitting. It doesn't really go with anything, but I will say attachment styles, I wouldn't say they're ancient, but they're definitely not new. And I remember I first found out about attachment styles in therapy, and it did wonders for me because it's one thing to get in relationships with people and kind of feel it out and kind of see how people are, how they move and what they do. It's another thing to know why they do that thing that they do. It's another thing to know, oh, this is just your attachment style playing out in our relationship. It makes a light bulb moment go off so you don't feel crazy. So I also learned about attachment styles from this book I read. It's called Attached, and it's by Amir Levine and Rachel S.F. Hell, I don't know. Helle. I'll put the link down below, but phenomenal book, wonderful book. Not only does it break down the attachment styles and what they look like, but it also gives worksheets. It gives worksheets of how you can identify your own attachment style. And I'm sure you can Google, there's a bunch of quizzes or things, I'm sure, on it, but it gave you a quiz on how you can identify your own attachment style. And then it kind of gives helpful tips and just advice that you can do, because the goal is to get to secure. We all want to be securely attached. That's the goal. That's the mountaintop. And so breaking that down, they have secure, avoidant, and anxious. Some say they have disorganized, which is kind of like a combination of anxious and avoidant, but usually you lean more one toward the other. So by definition, an attachment style is a pattern of emotional and behavioral responses that people exhibit in close relationships. Now, the way I learned about it, it was close, like partnerships, close romantic relationships. It doesn't necessarily apply to friend groups. I've seen some people do that, but it's not the same thing. Like, your friend attachment is not going to be the significant other attachment. So your attachment styles really refer to how you attach in intimate relationships, in romantic relationships, where you're engaging on a deep, intimate level. And so just to kind of give an overall of all of them, secure, the one we all want to get to, the one we all are hopefully striving for. People with a secure attachment style, they're confident that emotional support is consistently available and they can share their feelings openly, and they seek support when they're needed. So the secure attachment person, they're not bothered. I'm not going to say they don't, they're unbothered basically. In terms of their partner, they're not overthinking, they're not underthinking, they're just secure. They're there. Do you need them? They're there. Do you not need them? They're not there. They understand the assignment. That's what I was looking for. They understand the assignment of relationships, quite literally. They can adapt and they can assume the role. Sometimes these might be, just to give examples, people who may come from a 2-parent household where support was always available, whether that's emotional support, financial support, physical support. It was there. They had it. And they're good with their emotions. They know how to emotionally regulate themselves. And they have a pretty even temperament. Like, you pretty much know what you're going to get. You're not waking up wondering, are they going to be angry today? Are they going to be in a sad mood today? Like, they're pretty okay. They're pretty steady. And then they also want affection. They want to receive affection, and they also don't mind showing affection. So that's the secure attachment. And next we have avoidant attachment. So people with an avoidant attachment style, in a nutshell, they're uncomfortable with closeness and intimacy. They run from it like the plague. Traditionally, I think these are more of the people who engage in one-night stands, or maybe they love a little situationship, a little sneaky link, a little, something that you don't really have to be committed to. These are not the people who want to settle down and get in a commitment ASAP. These are people who they can do without the emotional closeness. They can do without the emotional intimacy. It literally gives them the ick. And then they kind of basically, like, they avoid conversations about their feelings, and they like push people away, knowingly or unknowingly. I think a lot of it is unknowingly, but yeah, they're very avoidant in their nature. And then we have the anxious attachment people. Shout out to my anxious girlies. Can relate. Anxious attachment styles tend to expect rejection from others. And I'll add on to this, because I don't think it's that people with anxious attachment expect rejection, but it's like they're just so fearful of being rejected that it's almost like they manifest that outcome. It's weird. So these are going to be like your people pleasers, or like the people who like desperately want to be needed. They want to be wanted. They're very needy people. They sometimes may overcompensate in the things that they do for their partner because they don't want to be rejected. They don't want to be left. So it's like they anxiously exist in their relationship, basically trying to like make everything perfect, make everything right, so that the relationship doesn't end, because they deeply fear being rejected and abandonment. And so just to get a little deeper into each of the attachment styles, and then the way from the book Attached, the way to move to secure, it's either you get with a secure person, like a secure person with a secure person, you have a secure attachment. But if you're a secure attachment style and you get with an anxious or an avoidant, there's still hope. There's still very much hope for you guys. It's usually the secure person that has to kind of turn the situation around, because they're the ones who are going to model what appropriate behavior looks like and what healthy behavior in a relationship looks like, because the anxious and the avoidant, honey, they're clueless. Help them, Lord, help them. They're very clueless. But because a lot of the times people who end up being anxious and avoidant, they grew up in either dysfunctional households or households that didn't have a lot of support, emotional support, financial support, security. They didn't have a lot of reassurance. They didn't have a lot of people tending to their emotional needs, tending to their intimacy needs. If they didn't have a lot of that, then you're probably in the anxious or avoidant category. But no fear. I think once you break down and once you see what the traits are of the attachment styles. It's like, oh, I do that. Oh, okay, I notice I do that. I do that. I do that. And there's not a right or wrong, but I think after reading and hearing what all of them entail, it's clear that everybody wants to be secure. Like, no one wants to be depending on another person for anything, but like, let alone happiness or long-term comfort, commitment, support. Like, the goal is to be secure with yourself, and then by law of attraction, you attract that other secure person, and then you're in a secure attachment, and there's no drama, no trauma, no mess half the time. So starting with the anxious partner, let's start there. So the thing that the anxious partner and the avoidant person have in common is that both of those attachment styles, they stem from a fear of abandonment. So the anxious attachment, they're so afraid of being abandoned, of not being loved, of not being taken care of not being cared for. They're so afraid of being alone that they will overcompensate and just do. What do you need? I want to be there. What can I do for you? How can I help? How can I be of assistance? How can we make this better? How can we fix this? They're just like anxiously grasping at anything they can because they don't want to lose that connection. The fear of abandonment is so strong. They're like, whatever I need to do to make things in my relationship work, I'm going to make it work. That's my man, and I'm going to stick beside him. Like, they're going to stick beside him for life because they don't want them to go. They don't want them to go anywhere. And so these people, and these are just general traits. It doesn't have to fit every attachment, but usually they can be jealous. They can exhibit traits of jealousy. They have strong emotional triggers that set them off. They are characterized by having low self-worth or low self-esteem, which is why they're willing to kind of go to such lengths, because they don't think that highly of themselves. And pair that with a fear of being rejected and abandoned. Like, I'm going to look a mess trying to save my relationship and whatever I have to do. They self-sabotage relationships, and they're seen as being very needy, very clingy, very dependent on their partner. They're not independent. They don't want to do the solo activities. They want to be in your skin. They want to live in your skin, and you better not be going anywhere, or you need to take them with you. They're very dependent, and they have a need for validation and reassurance. And I will say that, and this is a personal opinion, I think if an anxious person is with a securely attached person, I don't think they're going to need that much validation and reassurance. But what often happens is, and we'll get to this in a bit, anxious and avoidant people just find each other. They're like a magnet. It's like the polarity of opposites. Anxious people are attracted to avoidant people, and it just does not work because of the nature of their attachment styles. And that's the case, if the anxious person is with the avoidant attachment, they're going to need constant, and I do mean constant, they're going to need constant reassurance and validation that, hey, is this still working? Do you still like me? Am I still doing this right? Are we still good? Are you okay? Are you mad at me? It's that which causes them to be very overly excessively needy and clingy. But they usually end up in partnerships where they're not getting reassurance because that partner is often avoidant. Okay, so some other traits on anxious attachment. They crave closeness. They want to live in your skin. They want to be so close to you. Because they don't want to feel abandonment. They don't want to feel rejection. So the opposite of that is, I'm so close to this other person, they have to love me. They have to care about me. And that's what gives them satisfaction, is knowing that you're close, knowing that you're never going to leave. These are the crazy people who these are the I can't say that. Okay. These are the people who basically say that they'll never be okay without you. And whether it's a manipulation tactic, whether it's true because they genuinely believe that they will not be okay if they do not have the connection, that's neither here nor there. But they're very like that. They're highly sensitive to criticism, and they're very attuned to their partner's needs. And so it can kind of get a little annoying. That this attachment can get very annoying because they're like so attuned to what you need, and they're like, do you need me to do this? Do you need me to do this? How are you feeling on this? How are you doing on this? But they're neglecting themselves because they're dependent on their partner. And so because they're dependent, it's almost like they abandon self for this newfound glorified relationship that I have to do anything to keep, because if it leaves me, I don't know what I'll do. And so that's kind of the nature of the anxiously attached person. And so now we have the avoidant. So both the anxious and the avoidant people have been abandoned, hence fear of abandonment. But for the anxious people, it's like, I've been abandoned. I never want to feel like that again. Let me overcompensate. Let me do whatever I can to make sure that that does not happen. I'm going to ensure that nobody abandons me, because I'm going to be so about them, so attuned to them, so clingy, so at your service, so people pleasing that you're not going to want to abandon me. And then the avoidant partner, they take that a step in the opposite direction. Because they've also experienced abandonment, but their response to that is, well, this person left me who I never thought would leave me, then forget it all. Like, I don't care. I don't care who leaves. I don't care who stays. I don't care who goes. I don't care. And so they have a very detached way of, they have emotional detachment. That's a characteristic of the avoidant. They are emotionally detached, and they are that way because they have a fear of abandonment, but the way that they mask their fear is basically by pretending like they don't care. They're masking by saying, it doesn't matter, I don't care what this is, I don't care who we are. That's why they're so, like, it's like for the avoidant, it's like crazy because all of it's like subconscious in a way. Like, I don't think they're consciously saying, I'm gonna pretend not to care. Like, I care so much, but I'm gonna pretend not to care so I don't get hurt. And it's like, I don't think they consciously know they're doing that, but that's exactly what they're doing. So the avoidant person, they basically have emotional detachment, they have a fear of commitment, they have a fear of abandonment, and the way that they iron all that out is like, I'm just gonna act like I don't care. Like, I'm not going to give into any emotions. I'm not going to overly indulge myself. I'm not going to overdo it. Like, you want to leave, leave. You want to stay, stay. You want to sleep with me, sleep with me. I'm not going to commit to you. I'm not going to give you a commitment, because in the back of their mind, they're like, people leave anyway. Everybody leaves anyway. Why would I commit to you just so you can leave me again? No, thank you. And they think that they figured out the game, but it's really hurting all of their relationships. And avoidant people are also characterized by a strong sense of independence, which is like like, that's why they also don't like commitment, because in a sense, you know, you're learning how to be with another person. You're learning how to be in partnership, how to be in communication with another person. And the avoidant, like, they would just rather bypass all of that and just do them, quite literally. And they struggle vocalizing their feelings. They have a lot of trust issues, and they behave very inconsistently. If that man is behaving inconsistently, 1 week he's hot, 1 week he's cold, you think he ghosts you, and then he shows back up, he may not be playing games. He may just have an avoidant attachment style, which 9 times out of 10 they do. I'm not saying women don't have avoidant attachment styles. They very much can. I know a few, but it's a lot of the times the men. And I think it's because as women, we have this innate want and need to nurture, to love, to care for, to mate, to bond. And so it's like, attachment style aside, that's what we want. We crave that intimacy. We crave that connection. Men are not necessarily wired to want that, but if they find that in a woman that they love, of course they're all about it, but they're not wired to want that closeness. So it's like, they're very much able to detach a lot easier from women and situations, and therefore they behave inconsistently, because sometimes it's up and sometimes it's down, and sometimes it's working and sometimes it's not working. And they're going to prioritize them because they're avoidant and they're independent, and they're not with you anyway because they never committed to you, and they made sure that so that you wouldn't have anything to hold them to. And that's how they keep succeeding single-handedly. and they don't like feeling needed. They don't like discussing relationship problems. They're very dismissive over relationship problems because it's like, here we go again. Why are we dealing with this? We're not even together. Like, what are we even talking about here? Let's do something mindless. Let's do something where we don't have to focus on our feelings and talk about our emotions. Like, they hate that. They absolutely hate that, because you're going to get to a core memory or a core feeling of abandonment that they don't want to think about. And so they mask with basically just showing as little emotional interest and connection as possible. The thing with these two is, so there's a thing called the anxious avoidant loop, and then we'll get to the secure people, the best for last. So the anxious avoidant loop, it's basically the polarity of the thing. So polarity of the anxious and the avoidant person finding each other. They find each other because opposites attract, and the loop is like a negative cycle of reinforcement that happens when anxious people and avoidant people date. So basically, the anxious partner, they want the connection, they want the validation, they want you to spend time with them, and they feel insecure because the avoidant partner is emotionally distant by nature. So by nature, the anxious partner wants closeness. They want to hang out, they want to do this, they want to go where, they want to go here. And the avoidant partner, they're uncomfortable with the intimacy. They're uncomfortable with the pressure of having all these feelings and you being there all the time. They like their space. They feel uncomfortable when you're trying to like just be around them all the time, and they feel pressured to meet the anxious person's needs because you're telling them verbally, physically, mentally, emotionally, however way you can tell them that I need to be close to you, and that makes them uncomfortable. That makes that avoidant partner super uncomfortable, and then it makes them overwhelmed by your need for closeness. Like, I just want to be alone, and you're telling me that you just want to live in my skin. I'm uncomfortable, I'm out. And so they the anxious partner is doing what they can to try to bridge the connection. They're doing what they can to, how can we make this work? Because the avoidant partner is not going to do it. They're not going to do it at all. They don't care. They've convinced themselves that you're going to leave them anyway because of their fear of abandonment. And so they don't care to fight for the relationship. They don't care to see what they can do. So it's left on the anxious partner, not really, but it's left on the anxious partner to say, okay, I want this closeness. How can I make this happen? Because my avoidant partner is not going to take the steps to do so. And so the anxious partner, they do all they can to become closer, but it gives the avoidant partner the ick. I'm actively not pursuing you and you're coming closer to me. Ew. Like, absolutely ill. That's how they feel. And so then they start to pull away, creating more space. And then the anxious partner, hypersensitive, they feel that. They're like, oh, he's pulling away or she's pulling away. What do I do? What can I do? What can I do? And so they go harder. They go 10 times harder because they'll be damned if they're about to lose their relationship connection because they didn't fight for what they wanted and da 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 da. So the anxious partner goes 10 times harder. They cling harder. They be more needy, which, you guessed it, pushes the avoidant partner away further because they're like, it's too much. It's too much. And then at a certain point, the anxious partner gives up. I've done all I can. I've done all I can do. I've tried everything that I can think of to try to bridge this gap to get us closer together. And so they finally give up. And then, lo and behold, who comes back? Who comes back? The avoidant partner comes back, reemerges, reengages as soon as the anxious partner gives up. And they do that because they're like, oh, you don't want it anymore. You don't want to be clingy. You don't want to need me. That's what they like. That's what they delight in. They are so comfortable with that level of detachment. They're like, well, since you don't need me and since you're not clinging to me, yeah, I'm open. Yeah, I'm available. I can give you whatever you need. I can be whatever you want me to be, which is super backwards, but that starts the loop. That's the cycle. Because then the avoidant partner reemerges and they're like, okay, we can do this. Like, I can breathe now. You're not so in my face. And then the anxious partner, if they choose to reengage, if they choose to continue to play this game, it's a cycle. Because then the anxious partner is like, la-di-da-di-da, oh yay, you love me again and you're giving me attention. But then they're going to need that constant reassurance. Then they're going to need that constant validation. And then the avoidant partner is not going to want to give it to them, because then you're being annoying. Why are you being so needy? Why are you being so clingy? I'm going to go now. I'm going to head out. I'm going to take my little space. I'm going to take my little sabbatical. And then it's just this vicious cycle that absolutely needs to be stopped. So secure attachment styles, all 2025. And the secure attachment, basically the healthiest one. They know how to regulate their emotions. That's a huge thing. Huge thing. Because all of this is about emotions. How do you feel when you're in a close, intimate connection with somebody? What are your emotions telling you? And so with the secure person, their emotions, they're good. And even if they're not good, obviously, like, they get mad, they get sad, they get angry, they get upset, but they know how to regulate their emotions. Whereas an anxious person, if they're upset about something, if they're sad about something, 9 times out of 10, they are going to either internalize it, not bring it up in conversation because they don't want you to abandon them. So they don't want you to feel like they're nagging you and bringing up this little thing. So they're going to keep it to themselves and they're going to be quiet. But they're still going to act on it. They're still going to act emotional about it. The anxious person is, but they're not going to say anything to you because they don't want you to leave them, but they're going to start acting out, which can turn into self-sabotage. And then the avoidant partner, when they are feeling emotions, they just don't bring it up. Like, they just don't talk about it. They're avoiding it altogether. But if it's something serious that happened, it's not just going to go away. Emotions are energy. They have to go somewhere. Energy can never be created or destroyed. We go back to that law. So the energy has to go somewhere. And a lot of the times, the energy manifests as issues with the avoidant partner. Maybe they're picking, maybe they're just looking for any excuse to like get out. And it's because there's something that's not addressed there. So both of those insecure attachment styles, they don't know how to handle their emotions. So a big key thing for secure attachment people is that they know how to emotionally regulate, and they have healthy boundaries, and they're able to trust and be trusted in relationships. The avoidant partners, usually they got a lot of trust issues. Again, from the abandonment, like they don't know up from down. They don't know who they can trust, who they can't trust, because they trusted the wrong person one time. They trusted the wrong person one good time, for life ruined. And then some more qualities of secure attached people, they have high self-esteem. So one of the reasons why it's aspirational to be in a secure attachment style is because you have a high regard for yourself. You're not just going to do whatever and say whatever or pull away from good people, because you understand your value. And when you understand your inherent value, you can understand the value of someone else. And so secure people, they have very high self-esteem. They know how to effectively communicate, whereas the avoidant and the anxious person, they would have dealt with their emotions in those toxic ways. A lot of the time, secure people, they're confrontational, and not in a assertive, negative, unloving way. It's like, hey, let's talk about this. Like, what happened? I noticed you were feeling that way. What happened? Oh, what's on your mind? Like, it's very open, very honest, very effective communication, because they want to love and be loved. The secure people got it. They're like, okay, how do we make this work? We want the same things, right? How can we make this work without letting our humanness get in the way, you know? And they're very comfortable with intimacy and independence. Whereas the avoidant person, they're just extremely comfortable with independence. Put them by themselves, give them a little bit of interaction every while again, but mostly alone time, they're good. The anxious people, they want intimacy. They want closeness. Do not leave me ever. And the secure person, they have a balance of that. They know when to be close, they know when to be intimate, and we can hang out and we can be in each other's space, but they also thrive being independent. And they're okay with themselves. At the end of the day, they're really okay with themselves. They could be single, they could be alone. That's not going to change their temperament. Usually anxiously attached people, when they're not in relationship, they tend to be a little bit more moody. They tend to be a little bit more depressed, a little bit more down on themselves, pitying themselves. Why can't I find love? Why can't I go here? Why can't people like me? Why do I push them away? And avoidant people, it's like this nonchalant attitude, but I think they actually do care, but it's more like jaded. So instead of like, they're like kind of okay with themselves, but they're not okay by themselves. Anxious people, they're not okay with themselves and they're not okay by themselves. Like they want to find someone, but they're also not in a healthy space to find an appropriate someone. Avoidant people, they may be okay with themselves, but they're not okay by themselves. And again, that stems back to the fear of abandonment. So while they may be okay, they're looking for someone to have a connection with. A lot of the times it's not emotional. They are not looking for an emotional connection. I will tell you that right now. A lot of the times the avoidant, they're just looking for something to fill this void of like, I feel alone, I feel abandoned. And so they deal with it that way. But the secure people, they're okay with themselves and whatever that comes with. And they're reliable and they're resilient. You can count on them. You can count on them to be there for you. And they have good conflict resolution skills. They know how to properly argue. They know how to accurately fight and fight to where people are understood and people are heard, and it's effective. It's effective. There's no yelling, screaming, dysfunction. I mean, maybe, I don't know how they actually fight, but they, at the end of the day, they are able to come up with a conflict resolution. Yeah, so those are the three styles. Again, there is a disorganized style, and I think it's a little bit of both anxious and avoidant attachment. And then there's also a bunch of other ones that are worth looking up. Like I know avoidant has others that stem off of it, like fearful avoidant or stuff like that. But I think I kind of encompassed all of them in this one. So yeah, I just wanted to break that down. I think when I really got an understanding and a hold on this, it changed the way I viewed my relationships past, and it also changed the way I approach relationships in the future. I think now I'm constantly holding the mindset of, okay, is this what a secure attached person does? Am I doing the anxious thing? I'm not avoidant, never have been, never could be. Don't get that. I need the intimacy. Give me all of the intimacies. But if I were avoidant, even paying attention to that, like, am I pushing this person away? And these are just silent questions that I can now ask myself because I have the reference, I have the tools, I have the resources to accurately navigate relationships. Relationships are hard. Like, relationships are tough. And I don't mean hard and like they're a struggle, but I just mean like you're dealing with other people on an intimate, deep level. That comes with their baggage, that comes with their past, their traumas, their childhoods, their memories, their life. You're essentially interacting with another life of another person, and that comes with a lot of things that is not always easy to navigate. And then when you have things like subconscious patterns playing out in the form of these attachment styles, that also tells you something like, oh, even if this person didn't tell you, yeah, I grew up without my dad in the home, and so I never really got to feel what emotional intimacy felt like from a man or a woman. My mom wasn't in the house either. If that's the case, if that's their childhood story, a lot of people, they might not share that. Like, if they like you, sure, they might share that. But even if they didn't share that, when you have this framework, when you have this template, at least for some of the traits of these attachment styles, you can see, oh, maybe this is an attachment thing. If your girlfriend is constantly asking you for reassurance, maybe she's not only like jealous and insecure, maybe she just has an anxious attachment style. And maybe underneath the neediness and the nagging and the clinginess, she just really cares about you and doesn't want you to leave her. But if you don't have this terminology or framework, usually you just see those things as like, oh no, she's too attached, she's too clingy, like she's obsessed with me, like she doesn't have da da da. And it's like, a lot of the times it might not even be their fault. I'm sure if everybody was asked, they would want to be securely attached, but we have to get there. For those of us who weren't born there, we do have to get there. And I think, again, I recommend the book Attached. It's a lovely tool, I think, to kind of open you up to these concepts if you've never heard them before, but also just to solidify them if you have heard them before. 10 out of 10, highly recommend. And until next time.